Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, hello, hello. This is the BrainBuilders Podcast, and I am your host, Dr. John DeWitt. And today, as I promised yesterday, we are going to jump into some of Dave Asprey's work. Headstrong, the Bulletproof plan to activate untapped brain energy to work smarter and think faster in just 2 weeks. And yes, there is a link to this book in the description of this podcast. So, Dave Asprey, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is the inventor of the Bulletproof diet. He was a very successful businessman and decided that he was going to go travel the world and was hiking up in the Alps or something. And some of the Sherpas kept drinking this drink, and it was coffee with yak butter mixed in, I believe. And the fats actually help the brain function a lot better, especially at high altitudes, and that's kind of what led to, it was a very awkward version of how he came about the Bulletproof coffee plan, and then he's just kind of taken it from there. So, introduction. If you're like most people, you learn the same things that Dave Asprey did. Growing up, your intelligence is fixed, and your performance is a matter of effort. If you're stupid, you're stupid, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you fail, it's because you must be lazy and didn't try hard enough. Or maybe you're just not that strong. Next time you'll have to summon even more willpower to work harder. But if you fail again, it's because you are a failure. It's your fault. The belief that we either need to have superhuman smarts or put in an incredible amount of effort in order to be successful is built into our culture. We worship the struggle and the idea of natural talent. Trying hard is how you win. Being smart is how you win. But what if it doesn't have to be that way? What if it can be easier? In Dave's experience, fear of failure could drive an amazing amount of achievement. Before he was 30, he was fortunate enough to have already attained the kind of career that would have made someone happy who was decades older than he was. And give me 1 second here. Okay. He'd run technology strategy for a company valued at $36 billion, played a meaningful role in creating the infrastructure of the modern internet, and sat on the highest level advisory board of IBM. He'd already made and lost $6 million. He was getting an MBA at Wharton, one of the top Ivy League business schools in the world, while working full-time as an executive at a startup that eventually sold for more than $600 million. In short, he kicked ass, and it looked easy. But behind that success was a constant hidden struggle. The people around him could see his physical challenges, but most had no idea about the level of inner struggle it took to perform. For example, it was obvious that he was overweight and out of shape, and he famously fell asleep in meetings, but few people knew that it was a battle for him just to get through the day because his brain wasn't working the way it needed to. He couldn't focus at work, he had trouble retaining new information, and he had started to feel a chronic debilitating fatigue that couldn't be explained away by an entrepreneur's lack of sleep. He felt foggy, as if he had a constant hangover. It seemed like something was broken in his brain. He was irritable and cranky, quick to anger, and he made impulsive decisions. But he kept pushing himself. His middle finger got an excellent workout thanks to his driving habits, but the rest of his body was bloated and out of shape. It felt like he had to work twice as hard as other people to get the same amount done. He was pushing his body's accelerator all the way to the floor, yet was somehow stalled in neutral, idling. Life felt hard because he knew he had more to give, but it just wouldn't come when he asked for it. Then he started to fail some classes at Wharton despite trying his best. If only he had more willpower, if only he were smarter. He got really worried about flunking out of his MBA program, so he kept working harder and harder with no results. He wondered if his classmates were all smarter than he was. He didn't understand why he wasn't getting a better outcome, no matter how much effort he put in, and concluded that despite his success, he simply wasn't as good as he had thought. What he didn't know then was that his fatigue, lack of focus, forgetfulness, and moodiness, and even cravings weren't his fault. He wasn't lazy, a bad person, or a failure. The problem was that his brain was literally losing energy and wouldn't perform to the standard he wanted, no matter how hard he tried. Pushing the accelerator on a car with a broken engine won't make it go faster, no matter how hard you press. Frustrated and afraid that he was going to lose everything he'd worked so hard to achieve, he began looking for a way to apply his computer hacking skills to these problems. He was lucky to find Dr. Daniel Amen's breakthrough book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. Hey, we just were talking about that over the last several episodes, which mentioned something called a SPECT, single photon emission computed tomography scan, a nuclear imaging test that tells you how each part of your brain is using energy. At the time, this test was controversial, and there was plenty of skeptics, but he was desperate and intrigued, so he went to try it out at Silicon Valley Brain Imaging. The nurse injected radioactive sugar into his arm and asked him to try to concentrate while they looked at the activity in his brain using a giant machine like an MRI. Magnetic resonance imaging is what MRI stands for. Lo and behold, the scan showed that Dave Asprey's prefrontal cortex, the most highly evolved part of the brain that manages complex cognitive behavior and decision-making, had very little metabolic activity and was creating almost no energy. When he tried to focus and think, the part of his brain that was supposed to jump into action simply didn't show any signs of life. The psychiatrist took one look at the scan and said the words that he would never forget. Dave, inside your brain is total chaos. He has no idea how you're I have no idea how you're standing in front of me right now. You have the best camouflage I've ever seen. He was the first person to recognize the incredible effort that Dave was applying just to function, and it was because he could actually see with his own eyes that his brain wasn't creating and using energy the way it should. It wasn't exactly the best news that Dave had ever gotten, yet that knowledge set him free. Suddenly he realized that he wasn't struggling to succeed because he was a personal failure or because maybe he bitten off more than he could chew. There was something physically wrong with his brain, and it was harming his performance. That day, his diminished brain function stopped being a moral problem and became an issue with his body's hardware that he could fix. He just had to figure out the causes of his system's weaknesses so he could eliminate them. As a career computer security technologist, aka hacker, that's exactly what he did for a living. Take control of complex systems. And just like that, an idea was born. He would hack his brain to maximize its performance. You don't have to know everything about a system to hack it. He spent 17 years and more than $1 million on a journey to uncover the secrets to creating a state of high performance, power, and resilience. He started using smart drugs, cognitive enhancers, which he's now benefited from for nearly 20 years. And he used the famous real-life limitless pill, modafinil, turn his brain back on so he could finish his MBA at Wharton while working full-time. Smart drugs, or nootropics, are not considered academic doping, or else he'd have to give his degree back. He poured the extra energy and performance he got from the smart drugs into experimenting with and gaining an understanding of every conceivable method that might upgrade his brain's performance. He tried oxygen masks, cerebral lasers, brain training software, EEG, neurofeedback, which is a type of biofeedback that uses real-time displays of brain activity, breathing exercises, electrical stimulation, ice baths, yoga, meditation, diets, pharmaceuticals, hormones, and every possible supplement, all to figure out what worked, what didn't, and why. He even became president and chairman of a 23-year-old anti-aging nonprofit in Palo Alto called the Silicon Valley Health Institute so he could spend more time with experts in each of those fields. Instead of allowing his brain to respond wildly to the stressors around him, he took control of his nervous system, stress response, and the very energy production in his cells in order to grow his resilience. The things he learned along the way were nothing short of life-changing. After a lot of experimenting, he discovered that relatively easy lifestyle changes could lead to much higher brain energy. This gave him the power to focus even in the most distracting environments, to remember more, and to think more creatively. The fatigue that once caused him to drag himself through the day was replaced with sustained energy and resilience to stress. His chronic sinus problems disappeared, and the crippling jet lag that used to plague him for days when he traveled no longer affected him. He gained extra time to be productive because he was more effective, and at the end of the day, he still had the energy and willpower to be grateful and full of joy. The extra energy also gave him the ability to focus on personal development and to dig really deep into EEG neurofeedback so he could understand and change his brainwaves. All of these results added up to a level of performance that he never knew he was capable of, and it made him a better, happier human being. Best of all, it was effortless. It almost didn't seem fair that his life had become so much easier than he had learned to expect it to be. His brain was so sharp and full of energy that he stopped taking modafinil after 8 years. He just didn't want it anymore. But the greatest proof of his transformation came when he went back to Dr. Amen for a follow-up scan a decade after his first visit and revealed a high-functioning brain without the gaps he'd had years before. He was still working hard, but he had stopped struggling. He had come to believe that high-performance brains are our birthright as humans. Since then, he's used the same techniques that worked for him with thousands and thousands and thousands of followers and coaching clients. These are people of all ages and backgrounds, students, teachers, busy parents, and chief executive officers of Fortune 500 companies. Some are already performing at high levels and want to reach new heights, but the majority are facing some amount of fatigue and low brain energy like he was. No matter their current level of performance, all these people have two things in common. They're willing to make the necessary changes to get the outcome they want, and they get results quickly by using his headstrong techniques. As a result of seeing one life-changing transformation after another, he decided to put the most effective practices together into a comprehensive 2-week program designed to give you the fastest and most powerful results possible. It's difficult to boil tens of thousands of hours of research down to only the most important, easy-to-follow takeaways, and that's the challenge of creating a book like this. But his reason for writing this book is simple. The world is a better place when people are free to perform without the weight of exhaustion and wasted effort around their necks. And that's what he wants for you. He wishes someone had given him this book when he was failing out of Wharton or when he was an angry 19-year-old growing stretch marks. If we injected radioactive sugar into your brain, do you think it would look perfect? It's unlikely, but if you're like most people, it would probably look, well, average. This book isn't about how to perform at an okay level. If you're comfortable with your daily routine, save yourself a few hours by giving this book to one of your friends who will actually use it. Headstrong is for people who are looking for something more. This book is for you if you want to learn how to reach your maximum potential so that you can do whatever you love to do it better, and do it with less effort. It's for people who want to gain an edge, who want to spend more time enjoying the fruits of their labor and less time sweating it out on the field. If you're open to making a few simple changes in order to turn up the energy in your brain so that you can do more and be more, read on, or listen on, as it were. By following this program, you'll be able to upgrade your brain in just 2 weeks, and the results keep building from there. That means you're only 14 days away from knowing what it feels like to have less stress, more focus, and more resilience than you have ever experienced. No matter who you are or where you are starting from, Dave knows that you'll be able to squeeze a significantly greater performance out of your brain. Everything you do will require less effort, and you will become a better, more highly performing version of yourself. What would it feel like to have maximum energy to fuel your brain, your cells, and your every desire? To be more patient with the people you love, to make the best possible decisions, and to enjoy every minute of it. There's a name for this state where your body, mind, and emotions work together effortlessly to help you perform at levels beyond what you've learned to expect. He calls it being bulletproof. And he named his company after that high-performance state. And if you really want the energy to bring it every day, it's time to become headstrong. Excellent. So that is our episode today. A very exciting introduction to Dave Asprey's work. The link to the waitlist for the BrainBuilders Masterclass is still in the description of this podcast. So thank you very much. If you would like to join us there for our next Masterclass, you can be notified via email. And thank you so much for listening. I'm really getting excited sharing this information and just how everything's connected, all the really big name people that are in the cognitive health space. I really think that they all encourage and support each other, and so I'm just trying to get the information out there as well as I can. Tomorrow we will continue with Dave Asprey's Headstrong two-week program to boosting your brain function and to get it bulletproof. In the meantime, I'm your host, Dr. John DeWitt, and you have been listening to the BrainBuilders Podcast. Have a great day.